Hi.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Hi there. It's been a long time.
I know.
Long
I
time no
know.
see.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. I'm always following what you're up to. Lots of cool creative stuff.
Thanks. Likewise. I'm always
Yeah.
thinking you're very creative. So we have
Yeah,
a mutual admiration society.
that's awesome. I realized that I wanted to send you the questions in advance, but then I forgot to do it. So maybe before we start, I can just, so you're not like surprised, I can just like sort of, I can just give you like a general idea of where we're going. And then you can,
Sure.
if you
Sure.
need to think for a second, then you can do that. So yeah, so there's just six questions because I find like we're gonna probably get into these topics, so that'll probably be plenty.
Mhm.
So the first question I want to ask you about your career and what the most exciting moment in your career was.
Oh gosh.
So have a thought about
I
that?
guess it depends on how you define exciting.
Right. I like to start with that because I think that's cool for people to hear. And then I want to ask you about kind of like advice that you would give to cellists, kind of starting out or intermediates, like just learner cellists. So what advice you would give them if they're trying to develop an expressive sound on your instrument? Because that's kind of what your
Mhm.
workshop's going to be talking about. So we can kind of just go through that a little bit. You don't have to give away all of your secrets, just, the main thing. And then I always think that people like to hear from pros, like kind of what your practice sessions look like yourself. So maybe we can go through a
Okay.
little bit like how you practice, right? And what you're
Mhm.
thinking about when you do that. And then the fourth question, this is sort of a more general question about advice that you would give to aspiring cellists, like the number one thing to keep in mind, right, as they're kind of learning or on their cello journey.
Mhm.
And then the fifth question would be to be like a little bit specific about what people can expect in the master class. So letting them know like what's going to be happening.
Okay.
And then just a general question for you about what's next for you. Like what are you going to be doing next in your cello life?
Oh my
So
gosh.
yes, yeah. So those are the questions. We can get into it. I'm going to be editing this this interview, so I'll probably cut it down. Like what I found in the past is that they, we'll probably talk for like 45 minutes, but I'll cut it down to like 10 minutes. So if
Mhm.
there's any like extra stuff, you can go into whatever you want, and then I'll pick the best stuff. So yeah, so does that sound good? Is there anything there that you think might be a stumper, or do you think you'll be okay?
Oh, I think I'm stumped on the exciting moment.
Yeah, the first question.
It's just because there have been too many, like,
Yeah,
you know,
for
and
sure. Yeah, maybe some highlights. You could
yeah.
probably pick some highlights there. I think that's true. When I talked to Daniel Plain came to our class to do some Irish
Yeah.
improv. Same
Hmm.
thing. He was like, that's a really difficult question to answer. Because of course, there's probably going to be a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and
But
there have been
yeah,
exciting moments as a teacher, there have
of
been exciting
course.
moments as a performer, there's been
Yeah.
exciting moments,
Yeah.
you
So you
know.
can maybe just share what comes to,
Yeah.
the top of your head.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so those are the questions. I'm gonna just start us recording here. 1 second. I'm trying to like make my screen so I can see the questions and you at the same time, which is hard. Okay, so actually we are already recording. Okay, that's great. Okay, so yes. I don't know if I should put myself in this or not. I don't know
Oh,
if I need to do that in the recording for side by side. Maybe that's better. That's more
yeah.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So let me show myself. Show self. There we go. There I am. Okay. All right, Alicia. So welcome to our interview for your guest workshop. You're going to be joining
Hi,
us.
Ryan. Thank
Hi, it's great to
you.
see you. So
Nice.
you're going to be joining us on June, wait, what is our date? So you're going to be joining us on June 22nd,
Right.
Saturday, 2 p.m.
Hmm.
Eastern Standard, to do an amazing workshop with us about bowing and being expressive with the bow. So we're really excited for that workshop. And we're going to get into that a little bit for people who are listening and watching this, what we're going to do exactly. But I wanted to start by kind of introducing you to Alicia and just getting to know her a little bit. So Alicia, could you tell us what has been some of the most exciting moments in your cello career so far?
Well, like I was saying a little while ago, that's a really hard question to answer. I've had a few. Performing at Carnegie Hall. That
Oh
was
gosh.
extremely exciting.
Yes.
That was at the very beginning of my professional career, with an orchestra that was comprised of students and professionals in the Philadelphia area, with Tamara Brooks, who then went on, was teaching at the New School, but she was the music director of the Mendelssohn Club, which is a huge chorus, professional and semi-professional
Yeah.
in Philly. And we had the Britain War Requiem at Carnegie Hall. So that
Oh
was
my
really fun.
gosh. An
Um,
epic, an epic
yeah, before
piece.
that,
Yeah.
winning a job, winning an audition, and I played assistant principal cellist in the Shreveport Symphony in Louisiana for 4 years. So that was a highlight. Before that, probably playing under Carla Maria Giulini in the Chicago Civic Orchestra and getting to play in that orchestra with my soon-to-be husband. So that was kind of
Oh,
fun.
that's really nice.
So those were early, and then
Yeah.
more recent highlights, touring with my piano trio, going to play concerts in North Dakota and Maryland, and at our local college where we're trio ensemble in residence. So that's always a highlight because it's a beautiful hall. And
Oh,
um,
that's great.
yeah. And then as a teacher, seeing a
Yeah.
student of mine go on to win a place, be a student at the Yehudi Menuhin School in London.
Wow. Congratulations.
And
That's
yeah,
amazing.
and having some students with one former student who's now doing a lot of work in studio work in Los Angeles and playing with a group called oh gosh, now the name escapes me, but it'll come to me. And another student who is now the assistant principal of the Washington National Symphony. So yeah,
Wow, you've had a lot of success as a teacher, which is
yeah,
really cool for
yeah.
our people who are watching. Alicia is an amazing instructor, so you would
So
be foolish not to sign up for this workshop. So
it's
I want to ask you, Alicia, what advice, speaking of students, what advice would you give to cellists, aspiring cellists, who want to develop a really expressive sound on their cello? Because that's going to be the
oh,
focus of our
such a good
workshop.
question because
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's like my whole reason for being a teacher is having discovered it
Yeah.
myself and with my own teacher, who was one of my teachers, who was just a master of tone, and that
Mm.
was Lev Aronson, who is
Mm-hmm.
rather well known as a pedagogue, and of course he's gone now, but he was the first person to really open the door. And so, how my advice would be that the very first thing you have to do is master a clear, full, resonant sound that of quality,
Yes.
and really understand what it takes to get the string to vibrate.
Right.
So that's sort of step one.
Yes.
Then from there, and that alone, that depends on so many factors, like
Mm-hmm.
which we'll cover in the workshop.
Yes. Yes.
Some of the basics, like
Right.
balance of the bow in your hand and the rotation of your
Yes.
arm and the function of every single finger.
Yes.
And then, of course, the things that people have heard, which
Right.
are um, speed, weight, and placement, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, but we can't really get to speed, weight, and placement without a good feeling of balance in the hand and in the arm. So
Yeah. So the
I'd say,
balance.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I would say you want to start with the most basic things.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know if you found this. I have found this with my students that this is something, because I often have students that will say to me, okay, well, once I've learned that, I'll just move on. I found in my own cello practice that tone and the fundamentals of tone is something that you return to constantly throughout your life as a
Yeah,
cellist, right? So if there's anybody
absolutely.
thinking, oh, maybe this workshop's not for me, maybe it's too easy, just to know that like these foundations are something that you need to just keep going over because your nuance is going to get better, right? Is
Yes,
that what you found?
absolutely. And especially even at, this stage in my life
Yeah.
and being someone who's played professionally for 40 years now.
Wow.
Hard to believe.
Amazing.
But
That is amazing.
yeah, but I think, if I take time off,
Yeah.
the first thing I do is
Right.
sit down with,
Yes.
to try and reacquaint myself with this sort of beast of an instrument and the bow
Yes.
and how to
Yes.
draw a sound. And I'll start with open strings and then a
Right.
scale, a really
Yeah.
easy scale like a C major scale or a
Hmm.
G major scale,
Hmm.
and very slowly, because
Right.
we all have to return to the fundamentals,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
at
Yeah.
every juncture. Yes.
Yeah, and that kind of segues into my next question about what your practice sessions look like. So, yeah, you said if you're returning, you haven't played for a while, it's going to be tone first. What else do you incorporate into your practice at this
Well,
point in your career?
at this point, it kind of depends on what I have coming up.
Yes.
Um, and it depends on how much time I have.
Of
So,
course, yeah. Being a precious
usually,
resource.
yeah, time is a really precious resource at this point. So, um, often I'll just do a simple warm up. I have a routine, like a rotating, I guess a revolving door
Yeah.
of warm up exercises that I do. Um, Sometimes something from the Foyard
Oh,
daily
yes.
exercises.
Yeah, I love those.
Um, I like to sort of work on bits in popper etudes just to
Hmm.
sort of get the machinery going,
Right.
or as my Russian friend calls the apparatus.
I love
Yeah,
that
get the
description.
apparatus moving. And then because I have found, as I've gotten older, my joints are
Yes.
not quite as supple as they used to
Right.
be. So it takes sometimes a little extra and a lot of
Hmm.
hydration to get things moving.
Right.
Um, and then the other thing, and that's something that, I didn't think about as a younger player very much. And I used to just
Sure.
like sort of what's the word? I would just sort of blast into concertos, and
Yeah,
I
just
don't do
barrel
that
through it. Just get
anymore.
right in there.
No, I don't do that anymore. I don't start my warm up for an orchestra audition with Don Juan.
Yeah, anyone that's been in an audition room knows that that's
Yeah.
it's all the
So
Don Juans.
right, no more of that, but so it's a little bit slower and a little bit more
Yeah.
intentional now.
Yes.
And then I'll look at repertoire, and if it's new
Hmm.
repertoire, my practice might include listening.
Right.
It might include counting through something and singing
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Um, so I want to make sure I can sort of hear what it is I'm going to try to play before I put my bow on the string. And then I'll start to look at how things lie on the instrument. Um, like what position do I want to be in?
Right.
Where
Yeah.
where are the shifts?
Yeah.
Where
So
do I
thinking through the mechanics
thinking
kind
through
of.
them,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
mapping things out pretty
Mm-hmm.
carefully. And sometimes that means, 4 measures in 45
Right.
minutes, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, depending on, then because most of the music that I'm learning right now is chamber music
Mm.
or orchestral music.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll get a piece and the bowings are already in there because it's, been marked by the conductor or the principal or whatever,
Yes.
in an orchestra. So then it's a matter of just mapping out the left hand and making sure I know where not to play the rest, right? Don't
It's
want to
important to
fall
know
in.
where not to play as to where to play, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So counting through things and making sure I understand, especially with contemporary music,
Yes.
shifting rhythms and how
Yes.
things fit together.
Right.
Same with chamber music. When it's solo repertoire, I have a little bit more of I can be a little more self-indulgent. Um, so right now,
For sure.
yeah, and right now I am trying to climb the Everest that is the fourth Bach cello suite.
Oh my gosh, so beautiful,
Yeah,
but so difficult.
it's my fave. And so the only
Yes.
two I have never performed are 4 and 6.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I'm sure
I,
you're not alone with that. I think
right.
that's true for me
So
too. Yeah.
yeah, so my
Those
project,
are private.
yes, those two are, and the fourth is the one that I want to try to perform this year. The sixth is the one that
Lovely.
I am learning very slowly by
Mm,
mapping it out and
yes.
studying
Yes.
different editions. So
Cool.
that's, a rather long-winded answer to
No, that's okay. That's okay.
what am I practicing right now, or how do I practice?
Yes. Well, I really like your emphasis on planning because I think that's something that a lot of cello students, aspiring cellists, adult cellists might need to do a little more of when they sit down to practice, like thinking about what that practice is going to look like. So you don't end up bogged down on something, somewhat irrelevant.
Yeah, yeah. And I have a little book that I keep as a practice journal.
Yeah.
So, I'll
Nice.
write down. I kind of have a record of what I want
Yeah.
to try to accomplish. And,
Very cool.
and the emphasis is on the word try to accomplish.
Yeah, of course. It's always an effort. Yeah. So talking about your practice sessions and then kind of connecting that to student cellists or adult cellists who are learning on that learning journey. I mean, we're all on that learning journey at different levels. But what would you say is the most important thing for cellists to keep in mind as they're on this journey towards, getting better and never reaching perfection, but striving for it?
Yeah, because, we're flesh and blood and human.
Yeah.
We can't make music in a vacuum, can we? And
Mm-mm.
no, and you bring your whole self to this journey, and I'm glad you use the word journey because that's
Yeah.
exactly how I view it. And that wasn't always the case.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
word
you
that I've
know,
really come to love. I used to kind of cringe a little bit. I'm like, what
that's
is this
right,
journey?
right. I
Right? But
cringe.
it makes a lot of sense. It really
Yeah,
does.
because
So look at it that way.
perfection exists as an ideal, but in
Right.
reality, what we need to remember is that we have an aim, which is
Mm-hmm.
to serve the music,
Right.
to the best of our ability.
Yes.
And that the more I am able to get my ego needs and my goals out of the way
Mm.
and be where I am
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledge where I am and think about where I've come from,
Right.
um, then I can feel more satisfied and actually, ironically, achieve more
Yeah.
because I'm in the moment.
Right. You know,
It's
I love that because a lot of my students, they talk about having a lack of confidence. And I think, you know, what you're talking about, I believe that you can have confidence at any stage of your cello journey, right? I don't know if you feel that way, but I think like even if you're in, you know, Suzuki Book One and learning the basics, you can still feel very confident and happy with your journey. But I think like some people make it about, oh, I have to get here, then I'm going to be happy,
right.
right?
Yeah. You delay, you learn to be content with
Hmm.
delayed gratification. Like you may not, you can make music, you can sound beautiful
Yeah.
as a beginner. And I think,
Yeah.
my Suzuki training, long years as a Suzuki teacher,
Yes.
30 some years I've been teaching. And I'll never forget my first unit of training where there was this little girl who was really wiggly and struggling and, couldn't quite get.
Right.
I spent 4 days just trying to help her feel like the cello was one with her.
Yeah.
And then on the fifth day, the last day of the class, and we're all teacher trainees in this classroom, and the mentor teacher that we were learning from asked this little girl, finally, she got to play French folk song. Okay.
My
It's,
favorite in
oh,
book
my favorite.
one.
It's everybody's favorite. It's the
How could it not be?
Cellist international anthem, right? Anywhere you go, every cellist knows
It's the
this.
harmonies. I never
Yes,
tire
that's
of
right.
playing those harmonies.
Me either. And this little girl, this little tiny 5-year-old girl, played with the most stunning on this little tiny, like
Yeah.
quarter
Oh,
size cello, eighth size
yeah.
cello, made this sound that made all of us cry.
Wow. That's just
So
incredible.
that was a revelation to me because I was
Yes.
such a obnoxious, competitive
Well, were we
person
all? It's
back
not really
then.
even our own fault. That's how the classical training tends to work, you
That's
know.
right.
There's
That's
been a
right.
lot of like I think enlightenment in the last few years, but really, it's
It's been,
most of us
yeah,
came up in that like highly competitive.
that's
You're
right.
no good if you can't play fast.
That's right.
Kind
You're
of-
no good if you can't play fast, and you're no good if you can't play Dvorak cello concerto, and you need to get
Right?
there like now. And
Yeah.
that's not helpful. It's
No.
damaging, in
It
fact.
is, and I think it actually encourages many people to quit before they
Yes.
should, you know,
Yeah.
you
So,
know?
there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with striving for improvement because
Yeah.
that's what life is. We all
Yeah.
want to be better than we were.
Right.
But if you can make a gorgeous, beautiful sound on a simple song, you've done
Mhm.
something.
You really have. Yeah.
And so I'd say appreciate that and
Yeah.
embrace where you are because it's
Yeah.
the only way forward.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the Suzuki philosophy, we say that we learn new techniques with old songs,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Because you already know where the beats are and where not to play
Yes.
and and how they go.
Right.
But there, you can improve. You can play a book one song in thumb position. You can
Mhm.
pay more attention to the way you're using your bow. You can, put in slurs to learn how to make smoother, more
Yeah.
connected sounds on one bow direction. There are just
Right.
a
Yeah. All those
million
creative
things.
things that you can bring to the process that's really
That's right.
joyful, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of transitions nicely into the question I want to ask next, which is in this masterclass that you're going to be teaching, what can cellists expect? Without going into too much detail, but like just kind of an outline of what you're going to cover
Sure.
and why you want to cover that topic.
Well, I want to start with the most basic thing, which is the balance of the bow in the hand and where your bow begins and where it
Mm.
ends, and where your
Oh.
arm begins and where it ends. I want to talk about the rotation of the arm, particularly in the upper half of the bow. I want to talk about the job of the thumb, and every single finger on the bow
Amazing.
has a job to do. And
Yes.
I'll be talking about a very silly little nursery rhyme that I stole from a dear colleague that she doesn't mind, and I will give her credit. Which is, something I start. All right, I know these are adult cellists, but you have
It
to
doesn't matter. We like to
your
play and
inner
be like
child
children as much as possible.
that's right. So I have a little rhyming poem to share that might help. I want to talk about then getting into putting the bow on the string and the lanes of the bow and the
Great.
lanes of the string, I mean,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the way we divide the bow,
Right.
which one of my teachers called the mathematics of the bow.
I
I
love
really,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, I love
I
the
love it too.
specificity of this because it gets,
Yes.
yes.
And then,
Yeah.
we'll get into, if there's time and
Yeah.
there's interest, we can talk about different bow strokes and techniques and the materials that I use to
Yeah.
work on those. So
That is going to be so great. It's going to be so
there
fun.
you
And
have
I
it.
know cellists are really going to benefit from that because I know there's a lot of cellists out there that find the bow to be just this big mystery.
Yeah, well, it was to me
Right?
too.
Yeah.
I'm a lefty, and
Right. Okay.
it took me years to feel confident with the
Mm-hmm.
bow, and did a lot of study and hard
Yeah.
work focusing on my right side.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's going to be so exciting for us.
I hope
Yay.
I hope it's helpful. I
Oh,
hope
I'm
it's
sure. I'm
helpful.
sure. I have no doubt at all. Yeah, and then just the last thing I wanted to ask you, like in your life right now, in your cello life, what is next? What are you what's on the horizon for you in the future?
That's a good question. I tend to live from orchestra and trio season to trio season. So,
Yeah. So you're pretty
um,
locked in. A lot of pro cellists are. They're kind of,
yeah, I
yeah, on
mean,
that.
what's next? Well, probably a a concert coming up in September with my trio, where we're going to be doing the Paul Schoenfeld cafe music and some other sort of lighter, jazzier things than we normally do.
Fun.
And that will
Nice.
be fun. Um, and let's see what else. I have, immediately at the end of this month, teaching in Virginia at the Virginia Suzuki Institute, which also has,
Mm,
for those of your cellists who want to learn more about chamber music,
yeah.
they have a program with the Contra String Quartet for adult cellists, and it's
Oh, I love that. That's
adult
really
chamber
cool.
music, which I think
Yeah.
is really an amazing program. The quartet members are just the most adorable people, and they're so much fun. And I would highly recommend that. I don't know that the deadline has passed. I may have,
Mm, but for
um,
future
but
years.
for future years, it's a
Yes.
fantastic program in the mountains of Virginia.
Oh, beautiful. It's so
Near
cool to me. I think in the last 10, 15 years, how these programs for adults have popped up,
Yes,
at
yes,
summer
it's
camps for
great.
adults. It's so
Yeah,
great.
so I'll be
Yeah.
teaching the younger students at that camp, um, mostly doing the Suzuki thing. And
Yeah.
then I guess a little bit of home teaching and next fall and preparing for the upcoming concerts and concert season. So
Amazing. So busy and so fun. That sounds like
yeah,
a
it's all
great
good
time. A lot of
stuff.
good stuff.
It's a good balance.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and additionally, I'm also launching a bit of a coaching practice for
Oh,
aspiring younger musicians who want to work on confidence and audition
yes.
nerves and
Yes,
you
I'm
can
excited to hear about that because I know that's something that you have been thinking about and
Yes.
mulling around for a long time.
Yeah, well, I think the time has come, and I'm working on a certification as a coach right now to
Amazing.
make that a little bit more, I guess, legitimate sounding.
Right. So you feel more concrete and yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's so cool. Yeah, so those are really all the questions that I have for you, Alicia. That's great. There's a lot of great content there that I can chop up and make a nice video.
Oh,
Do
good.
you have any questions for me about like just like how the workshop will run or anything like that? Like anything
Yeah,
we want to talk about?
how you want to format it. I thought I kind of made a bit of a timeline, but
Yeah.
I was
Stop the
thinking
recording here for a sec.
start with the start with the bow hold, start with my ideas about, the